All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our very first episode of the final credits. Look, today it's very simple. We're doing our top five of the year, all the movies that we've seen, whether it be at the movie theater or on streaming. And I'm your host today, Mike Spade. And here we go. Here's my top five. So, um, look, making a top five list is very difficult. But my number five of this year is The Batman. And the reason why is because all the other movies were better than it. But I'll tell you this much though. As a fan of Batflick, right? I feel like he did a great job. But Robert Pattinson, I don't know, man. Playing an inexperienced Batman, he's got me hooked. So can't wait for that. So, all right. So, top four, right? Our number four for today, for me at least, would be Prey. Now, most people haven't seen it. It's a, it's not a retelling. It's just more of a different version of the Predator, but and he's fighting Native Americans, and the fact that these people are able to take down a predator who's got advanced tech and is able to be beat by somebody with bows and arrows and spears is mind-boggling to say the least. But I think it was a great movie. It went through almost 2 hours of nonstop pacing. I think it was awesome. And yeah, if you haven't seen The Prey, definitely go watch it. So number three on the list is Bullet Train. And let me tell you something. I'm a big fan of Brad Pitt, right? I don't think I've seen one movie of his that wasn't good. But Bullet Train, let me tell you something. Brad Pitt as an action star, I can't wait for them to make a part two. This is going to be insane. All right, so our top two right now is something that just came out the other day, and I feel like it's better than the original, and that's Knives Out, Glass Onion. Let me tell you something. Daniel Craig is by far in my top five best actors in general, because this guy is just phenomenal in anything that he plays. And Glass Onion, if you haven't seen it, get on Netflix right now and go watch it. And top one. You guys ready for this one? I don't know. Call me nostalgic, but this movie was by far my favorite throughout the whole year. And that is none other than Top Gun Maverick. Why? Because, are you serious? Like, come on. You got action. You had planes. Very little CGI, because most people today watch movies with tons of CGI. And this movie was, for the most part, very practical. And you don't often see that in movies. So that's my top five. Oh, and you know what? I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to give you an honorary mention. Ready? Number six would be RRR. And most people don't know this movie. I've been ranting and raving about this movie. It had me glued in my chair within the first 5 minutes of watching it. It was kooky. It was action-packed. It reminded me of what action movies should be. Because, I grew up in the 90s, right? Well, I guess you could say I grew up in the 90s, and watching action movies in the 90s was like total nonstop chaos. And that is what that movie does to you. What more could you want? So I'm going to give it up to the rest of the panel right here, right now. Here we go. So everyone sees everyone. We have Big Grim, Johnny Tendo, and Joey Pancakes. And Big Grim is going up next, and he's going to tell us his top five.
Okay, so we're going to do the honorable mention first. I feel this movie spoke to me like on a, I don't want to say personal level, but I felt it in my core. That is Turning Red. This is the Pixar movie that came out a little bit earlier in the year. And fantastic CGI, as always, from Pixar. Fantastic storytelling. Also, I'm a bit of a kaiju person myself. I have always loved like movies like Godzilla and everything. And if you see this, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. It speaks to the heart. Phenomenal movie. Number 5 and number 4, I was very much either or could take the spot. But for now, for the number 5 spot, we have Bullet Train. Bullet Train, I thought was fantastic. The story pacing was great. All characters extremely engaging. I wanted characters to succeed. I wanted characters to fail. I wanted a lot from this movie, and I was answered for it. Number 4, also again, could be 4, could be 5 for these 2 spots. Prey. Fun fact, I actually have it on right now, and honestly, this is such a throwback to the very first Predator. There are certain themes in here, and yes, even though you could say it's like, oh, it's like I just like the Predator versus a people that like haven't even had technology yet. It's not even about that. This is a story in which case you actually see dark reflections of each other between the protagonist and the Predator itself, and you actually do get to see a little bit of an old school Predator that does rely more on skill than technology in this. You still get the fun technological stuff, but it's just phenomenal. Number 3, I have to put it on here. I figured this was actually going to be a lot higher, but then I found other ones that I thought were personally better. And some may say it's controversial, whatever. The Batman. This movie was fantastic. Robert Pattinson killed it. Expressions alone just broke boundaries with this movie. The casting was phenomenal. Action was great. Story was great. Pacing was very good. Literally, only towards like the end of the movie, I started looking at my watch. Other than that, phenomenal. Number 2, not a lot of people talk about this movie, and I feel like it needs to be talked about more, especially for some old school movie viewers on there. When I say old school, I mean the black and white days of movies. Werewolf by Night. This movie was phenomenal. It scratches that itch of the classic movie monsters from beginning to end. Chills the entire time. Mind blown. Phenomenal movie. Number 1 pick of the year, without question. And again, I was actually speaking to a couple before the stream start. I forgot that this movie actually took place this year. Sonic 2. Fantastic movie. Probably the best video game movie ever made. Everything is balls to the wall, insane. Jim Carrey gives his heart and his soul to this movie, and it is classic 90s Jim Carrey that some of us have grown up with. You will not regret seeing this movie if you're a fan of the franchise, if you're just a fan of zany hijinks and action. Go see it. Highly recommend.
Nice. Thank you, Kenny. And going on next is our buddy Johnny Tendo.
All right. So I'll get started with my honorable mention too. It was also Werewolf by Night. I think this movie is just, it owns its tone. It like the 1940s horror noir, the black and white filming of it, everything it kind of nailed it in a way. It's technically a movie. It was a 40-minute special, so it wasn't anything like too long. But I think the story that it gave us was also a little like on the basic side, which took it out of the top 5 for me. But with what it did give us, it was just a really fun time. And like I said, the tone was just on point with the black and white filming. And that's my thoughts on Werewolf. So on to the top 5. So starting with number 5, we have the Batman. So I think this is a common theme across all of our top 5 so far. This was another movie that really nailed the tone. The the dark noir setting of everything. Like seeing how this different take on how the Batman started, this different take on Bruce Wayne as well. We're getting a younger Batman, a younger Bruce Wayne. And what I liked about this movie too is that it ever so slightly gave us a drop of that Batman campiness from the 1960s. I feel like it's almost as if we took the Adam West Batman and just made him as dark as possible and turned the grittiness up to 11. So the whole aesthetic of the movie just really killed it. And the reasons why it would be at the end of my list is just because, like Kenny said, it was a little bit long in the tooth with the running time. The third act was a little overdone in my opinion too, but other than that, the casting was on point. The acting, the dialogue, the overall story really killed it. So I want to see more of this Batman. So it left me wanting more. So number 4, another common theme, Bullet Train. It was just a really fun movie. It was what I liked about it was that it was limited in its scope. It all just took place on this bullet train for the most part. But it was just wild. It was a zany movie. You could tell Brad Pitt and everybody involved in this movie just had a really good time shooting it. It was the story just kept you on your toes. You did not know where things were going to go from one part of the story to the next. Every character was memorable. They had something to contribute. And if you're a Thomas the Tank Engine fan like I once was as a kid, you'll definitely have a lot to appreciate with this movie as well. And I'll leave it at that. But so that was my number 4. Number 3, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So this may be or may not be a controversial pick, but I have my reasons for putting this in my top 3, basically. For one thing, it was, I think every one of us was just, we were not expecting such a huge, powerful movie in terms of how they handled both the character of T'Challa and the actor Chadwick Boseman's death, both in the real world and in the Marvel world. And intertwining those as one and just making this movie just a beautiful tribute to Chadwick Boseman that it was. I think all the characters in this movie, the actors and actresses, they were all acting at at 100% level. Just for you knew that they were all doing this for Chadwick Boseman. The story itself, while not 100% airtight, was really well done, I think. And being able to make a movie without the original Black Panther and making it as good as it was, I think, is a feat in itself. And and then there's the villain, Namor. We finally got Namor the Submariner, and like the creative freedoms that they took onto his character and his background, I think, is one of those instances where I think it's almost better than, or it is better than what we had gotten with him in the comics. And they left him in a place where we are definitely going to see more of him in the MCU. So I'm definitely excited about that. But in total, it was a beautiful movie, very well done with its tribute to Chadwick, and it definitely left its mark in 2022. So for number 2, I put Top Gun: Maverick. So like everybody else has been saying about this movie, the movie making style that we got here was very nostalgic, much more practical effects than CGI, if there was any CGI. Tom Cruise was just, of course, very dedicated to his character here. And, I appreciated this movie more than the original Top Gun because I felt like it was more of a, like an Air Force movie. I felt like I was learning about what it's like to be in the Top Gun team and being in the Air Force in general, more than, what I would have gotten out of the original Top Gun movie, which I felt was more of like a campy love story 80s movie. Here we got like a full-fledged story. Every detail was, presented to you in, in an all business, but like not hard to understand form. By the time you get to the climax of the movie, you knew exactly each step that the pilots had to take to, achieve what they were looking to do. The story that, kept you on your toes. It was very exciting. I think the way it followed up on like all the characters from the first movie was well done. Although the original female character from the love interest from the first movie, they could have given her some sort of mention. I think that's a controversial point, though. I think some people can argue that they didn't need to give her any mention. So that's just one point that I always kept in my head after watching the movie. But other than that, Top Gun was definitely one of the top movies in 2022, and I could definitely see it like winning an Oscar for Best Picture. But my personal number one for 2022 is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I think that is, what I can say to describe this movie in terms of just what it brings to the table. It is, it explores the concept and theories of the multiverse in ways that is a lot better than other multiverse movies we have been getting the past year or so. So, that in itself is a pretty, big strength, for it to carry on its back. But, all the characters, all the actors in this movie also put like their A game into, their performances here. And, the story itself, I mean, if Bullet Train was a fun movie, this movie was just, it just went balls to the wall and, giving us just something completely entertaining and, not knowing where it's going to be going next from like one part of the movie to the next. And by the time the movie's over, you're just walking out of that theater thinking like, what the hell just happened? Like this was just the best movie ever. Like they pulled all the stops in terms of like movie making and storytelling and writing. Everybody deserves an award for this movie. And I really hope that it gets the, amazing recognition that it deserves. So when the Oscars come. So those are my top five. And I gave my honorable mention before. So I will leave it to Joey Pancakes to give his top five.
22 movies of 2022. Wait, we only have time for 5? All right, 5 movies it is. Coming in, I'll get to the honorable mention in a sec. Coming in at number 5 to feed the nostalgic feel. I mean, this might be a little bit of a controversy pick, but Jurassic World Dominion or Jurassic World 3, you had the uniting of the original cast with the current cast bring together. I know the storyline was a little shaky and pacing issues with the bugs being infected, but it was a great sight to see two casts from two different eras, and for the old school fans like myself to see Jeff Goldblum, who was in the previous movie as a cameo but had a bigger role. Moving on to number 4, I gotta say Doctor Strange 2, Madness of Multiverse, Madness in the Multiverse. We finally got to see the explore the different worlds, unbelievable cameos with the Illuminati, to see Patrick Stewart back as Professor X at least one more time in the multiverse of madness. Thank you from our producer. Patrick Stewart is classic X-Men, Xavier, green suit, the yellow floating craft, Mr. Fantastic, John Krasinski, the fan casting, our first legit horror movie in the MCU with Sam Raimi coming back to finally do another Marvel film. Moving on to number 4. Let's see here. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Like John mentioned, a beautiful tribute to Chadwick Boseman, but with great focus on the other characters. It captured that emotion by paying tribute, by still continuing a story. Namor, some Mariner, an unbelievable character that was introduced and got the full treatment of the MCU glory in the movie. Next up, number 2, and Kenny, you mentioned this, but this was just such a fun movie. You could tell the creative people behind it, the writers and the director, are having fun with this one. Sonic 2. In the first movie, we got the hint as Jim Carrey becoming Dr. Robotnik, but he fully embraced the role. And to see Knuckles as a badass, and we got Tails. I mean, such a fun movie. I think both movies are on par. That's another argument for another day. But my number one movie, which was originally supposed to be Ben Affleck's solo outing as Batman, but but this is the Batman movie we've been waiting for years, 10 years in the making, since unfortunately Dark Knight Rises didn't live up to the hype. But Robert Pattinson as that young, inexperienced Batman, I think this is the first movie we could honestly say we saw more Batman than Bruce Wayne, and they put emphasis on it. And Batman needs to be a movie with no PG-13 ratings. It has to be R-rated fully. What a cast that was. Now, for my honorable mention, I know a couple of you, I thought about Werewolf 2, but it was a 40-minute special on Disney. I feel like what meets a movie qualification as an honorable mention, I have to go with Stranger Things 4, the second slate. Those last 2 episodes are basically feature movies. I mean, with a movie budget, it was just so epic. But I'll leave it at that, with my number 1 movie being The Batman.
All right, everyone. That was our takes of our top 5. What's yours? Tell us in the comment section below. And from everyone here, we'd like to wish everyone happy holidays. And anybody else have anything else to say?
Thanks for tuning in.
And a happy new year.
Go watch a movie.
Ya filthy animals. This, ladies and gentlemen, has been the final credits. That's all. We
All
give
right,
you all
end scene, roll
farewell.
credits. Let's get out of here.
That's it.
That-
End scene.
that's all,
Roll
folks.
credits.
Yeah.
We are out.